Hi, you're listening to Behind the Bib podcast with Lisa Watkins. Real talk for every runner. Hey y'all, greetings and salutations and welcome to Behind the Bib podcast. I am your host, Lisa Watkins, and this week we are going to be talking about the half marathon that I just paced with Mr. AJ Stark called Run the Cove. It's a brand new half marathon in Hampton Cove, Alabama. And wherever you're listening to me, buckle up. If you're on a road trip, turn the volume up. If you're out there on your long run, however you're listening to me, I just wanted to say a quick thank you for doing so. I appreciate your support. All right, let's get started, you guys. Okay, so this past weekend, I had the privilege and honor of running the Run the Cove half marathon that is put on by Fleet Feet Huntsville and Madison, and by Suzanne Swift and her awesome team of Fleet Feet volunteers in the Fleet Feet team. So this race was in Hampton Cove, it's a little near Huntsville, Alabama. And before I get started, I wanted to give a shout out to a few folks that I had the privilege of talking to and experiencing this weekend. So first of all, Darren Ezzo, I'm not sure how you pronounce your last name, but thank you for always showing up with Marco's Pizza at these races. I was talking to AJ during the race, and I mean, it's just so incredibly cool. So Darren gets up, goes into the store, he bakes the pizzas from Marco's Pizza, and then he takes them to the races. And not only he donates all these pizzas, and it's just fabulous. And if you've ever had Marco's Pizza here in Huntsville, it's wonderful. It's one of our best pizza joints. And I just wanted to say thank you, Darren, because the cheese pizza hits like nothing else after a race. So just a shout out to you, and thank you so much for doing that. You don't have to, and we appreciate it. Second shout out is to Greg Gelmis. Oh my God. So Greg, I don't know how you capture the race photographs that you capture, but honest to God, the photographs that you take are some of my favorite ever. I don't know how you capture them, but they're like, you always capture people like in a good light, and you're looking for stuff like, hey, let's get the pole out of the background. I mean, it's just stuff that I would never think about. And then you post the race photographs. Sometimes you have to wait 2 or 3 days for photographs. Greg, it's like before I have gotten in the car and gotten home, the race photographs are up. I don't know how you do it. It's phenomenal, and I just appreciate you. And not only does he do a great job, you're just so stinking cool. I mean, he's just happy to be out there, and he's talking to everybody. I mean, you just do a great job. So thank you, Greg, for doing all the things that you do. I appreciate it. I know the run community appreciates it. Okay, let's get started with the course breakdown. So before I go anywhere, I want to talk about the shirt first. So the shirt is this wonderful light blue kind of robin's, and not quite a robin's egg blue, but it's got teal accents, and it's like really graphically designed. You can tell that they put effort into this metal design this time. So I'm going to show you the metal. So the metal, of course, matches the t-shirt. So check out that metal, y'all. Let's see. Can you see that? Look how cool it is. It says Run the Cove in these really graphically stylistic letters. But it's really neat because you can tell that they put some thought into it, because the mountains and the streams and the highways, and then the bridges on there, I mean, those are all pieces of the route. And I was like, oh, that's stinking cool. Also, the bib was pretty cool looking too. So great job just tying the metal to the bib, to the shirt. It all made sense to me. And it's actually one of the prettiest medals that I have. So good job on that. I really appreciate it. Everybody's talking about it too. It's like, oh, that medal's so pretty. All right. So let's talk about the course breakdown a little bit. So the Run the Cove half marathon, we started at the Big Cove Greenway. And so first off, I would not say this race is a very pace inclusive race. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to forego blocking off major thoroughfares or roads for extended periods of time, right? It makes it, I know race directors have a lot of pressure on them from cities to not do that for extended periods of time. So hats off to the race team and race director this time, because I know it was on the Greenway and there was a lot on sidewalks and neighborhood streets and stuff like that. But doing that allowed this race to be more pace inclusive. And I know that there was more than one runner out there that this was their first half marathon. So thank you for doing that. That said, I would not say that this is a PR race because you start out on Big Cove Greenway, which is great. It's a beautiful greenway. It's a wonderful greenway to go do your long runs. It's 3.5 miles down, 3.5 miles back. You can park at Hampton Cove Middle School or the Tortora's parking lot over there. It's safe. It's just a great greenway. You run down beside Flint. You cross Flint River. There's 2 beautiful bridges. I mean, just wildlife out there. It's just beautiful. So you start there on the greenway, and it's kind of tight. And so until the runners start thinning out, if you haven't gotten to the front of the pack and you are a front of the pack runner, you're going to be doing some weaving, right? And then after you cross the tunnel, there's a few sharp turns going into the tunnel and crossing over to the Hampton Cove neighborhood, where you're going to be on sidewalks for a little bit. And although not ideal, again, it's one of those things that allows this race to be pace inclusive. So if I were to say either not be pace inclusive or run on sidewalks, I'll run on sidewalks all day long, because it allows people to run their first half marathon, right? So, and it's just fun. The sidewalks were surrounding the Hampton Cove lakes out there. And so you just run around the lake. It's really a beautiful run. You're just out there on a beautiful Saturday morning. It was great. And then from going through the Hampton Cove neighborhoods over there, you turn left onto 430. It's the old 431 bypass Greenway, I think is what they call it. And that greenway runs along old 431 pretty much all the way down to the Flint River, where folks put in canoes and kayaks down there. You turn left before you actually get to the canoe and kayak put in. But, and you turn on, I think it was Little Cove Road that we turned on, and we ran up back there in the Hampton Cove Hills. That's what I was calling them, the Hampton Cove Hills. So up until that point, though, the race is pretty flat, right? You run on the greenway, you turn left onto old 431, go through that tunnel, and then cross over, and you go around the lakes over there on the sidewalks. Then you go down a little piece of the greenway, and then you turn left again onto Little Cove Road, and you take that up through. You do a few turns back up in there on Hampton Cove. And then you come down out of the mountains, or not the mountains, but out of the Hampton Cove Hills, and you turn back onto the Big Cove Greenway that's back there behind the Hampton Cove Middle School. And you finish on that Big Cove Greenway, and you kind of circle around the lakes back there. And then you finish on the track that's right behind the Hampton Cove Middle School. So the course was pretty flat up until that point, but I've got to say I was kind of dreading the hills until I got to them, because I think they started around mile 8 and maybe mile 9, and at that point I really kind of needed a different elevation. Like my hips started getting a little achy, my legs started getting a little achy, and I was like, the hills actually felt good after being flat for the whole time, because your body just does the same motion over and over. And then we got into the hills, and you're engaging different muscles, you're moving differently. And so it was actually, it was a welcome relief to get those hills. Now, I do have to give a big shout out to my co-pacer back there, AJ Stark. So this was actually the first race that I have officially paced, right? Like I had like a pace sign and all that jazz. And I had gone out a couple of weekends before to kind of figure out the walk run, the method that we were going to use. So we ended up using run 30 seconds at a 12:30 pace and then walk for 90 seconds. I think it was between a 15 and 16 minute mile pace, depending on if we were on the flat or on the hills. Now, I will say that put us getting in before 3:30. I think we were estimating we were going to finish around 3:15, 3:16, something like that. But which we could have slowed down at the end and finished right at 3:30. But here's where communication comes in, because we talked to our group back there. Which huge shout out to Melanie and to Cheryl. Y'all were so much fun to run with. The miles just flew by. We were talking about everything from, from our favorite shoes to our favorite pace inclusive races to even our favorite snacks. We got into this whole discussion on whether or not M&Ms or Skittles were the best. And so that was awesome, just getting into that whole discussion. We just chit-chatted the whole time. AJ brought his little 39G speaker, and we were listening to music. We started off with Taylor Swift, and we quickly switched that. Thank you, AJ, by the way, for switching from the Taylor Swift stuff. I appreciate it. And, but y'all, Melanie and Cheryl, y'all were just a delight to run with. And AJ, you were so awesome because, I knew the paces that we were having to run, and I'm just not the best at like keeping myself exactly on pace. I wish I was like a metronome, but I'm just not. And so AJ every now and then would check us and be like, hey, our walks are a little too fast, or our runs are a little too fast, or something like that. And then we would kind of chill out a little bit. And, but we just communicated with our pace group, and I was like, okay, y'all, we can either finish at 3:30 exactly on the dot, or we can finish just a little bit early if you want to keep going at this current like walk run interval. And I said we could add some walk, or we can slow down the run. And they were like, nope, let's keep going with what we're doing. And I'm like, okay. So we did end up finishing just a little bit early of our 3:30 mark, but we had communicated with our little group back there, and everybody wanted to keep doing the things. So we did. All right, so big, huge shout out and thank you to AJ for helping me co-pace that. I really appreciate it. He's done a lot more races than I have, and he's paced a lot more races than I have. So I was learning from you kind of on the fly, and I appreciate you helping me through that. So very much. And we had a great time. We literally talked the whole time. And the miles just flew by. And I think, Melanie, even we exchanged like communication, and she texted me afterwards and was like, y'all, that was the best half marathon experience. It was so fun. The miles flew by. I didn't even realize we were done by the time it was so good. So good. So I really enjoyed it. It was a great half marathon, and we had just a great group back there. So let's see. Coming into the final stretch. So first of all, Greg Gelmis was there at the turn, taking some great photographs of people. So thank you for being out there. I will say, I'm not sure if Melanie got her finish line photo. Because when I was going through the photos at the finish line, I think Greg had moved up, maybe up to the last curve that you take before you come into the middle school track. So shout out there if anybody knows, like, because there was a few people like taking iPhone photos down there, and I'm not sure if her husband got finish line photos of her, and it was her first half marathon. So if y'all happen to know of anybody that was taking pictures there at the end, that would be super awesome if we could get her a finish line photo. All right. So the race, you finish on the part of the Big Cove Greenway that's back there behind Hampton Cove Middle School, and it goes around those two small lakes back there. And then you kind of come around the side of the school, past the parking lot there, and then you finish on the Hampton Cove Middle School track back behind the school. And you come in and, we saw Melanie, she kind of turned it on there at the end. So did Cheryl. So they had a big, strong finish, and it was wonderful to see. And again, hats off to Marco's Pizza and Darren for donating the pizzas for the race, because when you finish, you're because I will say the last 4 or 5 miles, all we're talking about is food and breakfast. And we were because I think we all thought that there were going to be pancakes. I don't know if I dreamed that or made that up. I thought that we had talked about that, but we were talking about the pancakes at the race, and everybody wanting the pancakes. But I will say the pizza was absolutely just as good as the pancakes, because Marco's Pizza, especially the cheese pizza afterwards, is super great. So thank you for being out there and donating that. Also, Food City, we have a brand new Food City here, and Food City it's on 431, heading towards Gunnersville down there. And they came in clutch with some awesome snacks. They provided all of the milk, the chocolate milk post-race, which if you've ever done chocolate milk post-race, there's literally not a better race recovery drink. It's got the protein, it's got the carbs, it's got the simple sugars in there. It just really was wonderful to have chocolate milk at the very end. And cheese pizza. So it was so good. So all of that to say, we had a great time this weekend. Was it a PR race? No. Does every race have to be a PR race? I don't think so. Can't you just go out there and run with your buddies and enjoy a beautiful Saturday morning? Speaking of which, the weather was fantastic. It was 50 degrees when we started out and sunny. And so if typically when you're a runner, if you exercise a lot outdoors, start off cold and you warm up real quick, because you add between 10 and 15 degrees to the feels like temperature, because your body starts exercising and you get hot. So if you're a little bit cool when you start off, that's perfect, because you will quickly warm up, and as the day warms up as well. So it was absolutely beautiful, 50 degrees, almost perfect. I will say that the only thing, there was a headwind for a lot of the race, and I don't know why there was such a headwind the whole time, but my goodness, there was a headwind. And I will have to apologize for my race group back there, because my eyes and my nose were pouring the whole time. I don't know why they were pouring so much, but there was something in the air this time, and it's just constant sniffling, through the whole race. I know I brought the tissues. I even got tissues from somebody on the race. I had my sleeve, I know it's gross, but you have your sleeves, you do all of the things, but still, it was a lot. And so I'm sorry for sniffling the whole time. I wasn't crying the whole time of the race. So I appreciate you being patient with me on that. Because it was a thing, very much so on this time. But the weather was fantastic, even if I was having an allergic reaction to something out there. But it made for a wonderful half marathon out there, starting on the Greenway, finishing in the Hampton Cove Hills, back there, having Marco's Pizza But by far, my favorite thing, though, was the company. Back there with AJ and Melanie and Cheryl, and we just chatted the whole time about a whole gamut of things, about our favorite races, our favorite pace-inclusive races, our favorite shoes. And that, running is great. So you start running for one reason, but you continue running for an entirely different reason. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about these races being more pace inclusive, because folks that get out here, and we know, you and I, if you're a runner, if you're an up and coming runner, or just starting, or if you've been doing it for 25 years, you know that you start for one reason, and then you continue to do it for an entirely different reason. And that reason for me is the mental health benefits that I get out of it. Absolutely, physical health is great. I can stay out on the dance floor with my daughter at all the weddings that they're all going through for hours now. So my cardio is just fantastic now. Stay all day long at Disney. Don't even feel tired at the end. Like, there's lots of physical benefits to this. But the mental and emotional and even spiritual benefits that you get out of it is so much more. So I'm really passionate about pace inclusivity because when you have a first race, right, and you have a bad experience, you are not going to come back, right? You're going to get discouraged. It is demoralizing. Running's hard. This stuff is hard. And if they're taking down the finish line or anything like that, it makes it even harder and it's demoralizing. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is to give you an idea of what it's like. And so the mental benefits, the spiritual, the physical, the emotional benefits, that's all the reason why we keep doing that. And we were talking about it during the race, and it's this camaraderie that you have. You have your run buddies, and you spend a lot of time with those run buddies. And I hope that you find one. I know that there was more than one person out there that it was their first half marathon. So congratulations. If you completed your first half marathon in the Run the Cove this past weekend, congratulations. I hope you come back. I hope you stay. And I hope you continue to get the benefits of this wonderful, wonderful sport that we can do forever, right? Throughout all of our years. So with that, I will say Run the Cove was a wonderfully pace-inclusive race. It is not going to be your PR race. You're on the Greenway. You're on the sidewalks. There's some big old honking hills at the very end of it. But is it a great half marathon? Absolutely. You get out there and run it with your friends. Don't treat it as a BQer, because it's not going to be that. But if you're wanting to go out there, get a great run in, get some beautiful scenery, run it with your friends, talk the whole time, this is absolutely the race to be doing that. And I do hope that Suzanne continues doing it. I loved the medal this year. I'll show it to you one more time. Here's the medal again. I loved the medal this year. I loved the t-shirt this year. Colors were great. Design was great. Everything was great. And just a shout out to that team. They really do a wonderful job putting on races. And I think they actually had 2 races going on the same day. So good job. All right. With that I think that was episode 9 of Behind the Bib, talking about Run the Cove half marathon this past weekend. And I will say, if you're listening to this and, hey, maybe you're a passenger in the car and you could just run over to the DMs or leave me a podcast review or something like that. Or I always follow up with like an Instagram story on these as I publish the podcasts. If you have a race experience that you think was absolutely wonderful, everything from crowd to sport to race organization to like the finish line to pace inclusive, especially the pace inclusive races, let me know. Send me a DM or comment on the posts that I send out, and maybe we'll go check out that race too. Tell me what you love. Tell me why you love it. All right. Coming up next week, I am traveling to Hotlanta, Georgia. So going over there to see my wonderful nephew, and happened to see that there was a St. Patrick's Day Parade 5K. And who doesn't love a great excuse to dress up in all of the green and gold and the shamrocks? And so I'm going to be getting out that green gear for the 5K coming up in Atlanta next weekend. So until then, folks, we will see you next time. Thanks again for listening to Behind the Bib. I am your host, Lisa Watkins, where we have real talk for every runner. Thanks, y'all. Take care. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Behind the Bib with your host, Lisa Watkins. Real talk for every runner.